What's up, guys? Welcome to TFGoose Gaming. I'm TFGoose here with Vendetta, and this is another update to our Hearthstone Deckbuilder series. Today we're covering the Shaman, and again, just real quick, if you don't know the series, we're just giving you guys a couple of different deck options, a low budget, sort of low mid, and then a high budget one later in the video, and showing you some gameplay in the background. These are just ones that we're working with the collection that we have, so take it with a grain of salt and enjoy the gameplay and commentary. Starting off, we're going to get it going with Rockbiter weapon here, yeah?
Yeah, Rockbiter is a great card. It's awesome if you can pair it with Doomhammer. Gives it mega damage.
Mega damage, yeah, but really, really great. You put this on yourself or, a creature and just get that nice burst damage for +3, finish something off. Very, very nice card and good surprise damage. Up next, after that, we've got Stormforged Axe. I only have one of these in my deck because I only own one.
Fair enough.
Yeah, but still great. It's a weapon. Weapons generally are very, very strong. And for some reason, shamans, people don't expect them as much. So it's nice to be able to clear, minions and stuff when you can pull this out. So I like it a lot. But speaking of weapons, and the reason why you carry the next card is get rid of them, right?
That's right. Acidic Swamp Ooze, 3/2, destroys a weapon. We've talked about this card a lot. No need to go into super detail.
Yeah, this is a great one. It's kind of a staple for our decks for, obvious reasons. Really nice card to have, especially in the current meta. As well as the next card, another one of our personal favorites, the Fairy Dragon. This card's great. You can't target it individually, so it pretty much farms up mages and to some extent priests and, well, anyone who wants to clear a direct minion on an early turn. So stick these in your deck. They're really, really great. This is actually the first two cards I crafted. So moving on to a little bit more Shaman-specific stuff. Up next, the Flame Tongue Totem. Love this card.
Yeah, love it. It gives minions on either side +2 attack. Has 3 health, so it's kind of annoying. It makes for great board control.
Yeah, it's absolutely, great for that. And if you can manage to buff a little bit of attack on this too, it's kind of fun just so it can defend itself a little bit. But really, really great and helps swing the tide in your favor for sure. Next up, another card. It's a neutral. We've used it in several other decks too, is the Knife Juggler, but pairs really, really well with Shaman, mainly because of your summon ability, right?
Yeah, your hero ability. Your ability is 2 mana. You cast a totem. You have 4 different totems. And with a Knife Juggler, you get that 1 extra damage. Doesn't sound like a lot, but it adds up.
Yeah, absolutely. It's nice to have out there. And, you pull up a Taunt Totem. It protects it, too. It's really, really nice. So after that, next up is Hex.
Yes, this is pure removal. This is kind of fallen out of the metagame, but we still like to run them. It's great to remove those big, scary creatures. I love Hex. It's awesome.
Yeah, I think it does a great job. I mean, it's a low-cost one, and it's because it creates a taunt minion that you have to clear, but I still think it's very, very worth it, especially nowadays when people are running a lot of high-end legendaries and things like that, and you might see that, and it's great to just go, dink, sorry, that's gone.
Yeah, speaking of removing legendaries and that of the sort, we have Lightning Storm up next. It does 2 to 3 damage. It's kind of random. Your ideal play here is to hit it with the Wind Fury totem, so you get that +1 spell damage. This is basically your AoE board clear for Shaman.
Yeah, very, very nice to have. Unfortunately, it's not in the standard deck. You have to open these up in packs. I don't have another one in this deck yet, but when you find them, throw them in here. They're excellent for board clear. And after that, a little bit of card draw. Another card I personally like a lot, Acolyte of Pain. Throw this in there when you otherwise don't have some card draw. It really helps, especially if you can get it buffed or protected with taunts, so it can stay on the board and do damage as you see fit and activate the draw. Very, very nice card. I like it a lot.
Yeah. Up next, we have Harvest Golem. It's a 2/3 with a Death Rattle of summon a 2/1 minion. You're going to see a lot of these. It's a very popular card because it's great. It just works. We've talked about this card a lot.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It does work, and there's a reason why you see it in a ton of decks. We're actually kind of worried that it's going to get nerfed because of that. Speaking of nerfs, though, again, one that did get nerfed is Shattered Sun Cleric, but I still think that this card is worth it. We've said it before. Give +1/+1 to a minion that's already in play. That's really what you're using this card for. It's not just because it's a 3/2. You really just want that buff to change up the math and screw up your opponents. So, like that card a lot. Next one up, this card has changed already as well. The Dark Iron Dwarf, right?
Yeah, Dark Iron Dwarf. It only gives +2 attack now on a per turn basis. I still think it's useful in decks, not as useful, so feel free to take that out, but I still run with at least one in my deck.
Yeah, that's what I was going with here. I just kind of want to test it out a little bit and see how much it hurts to have that permanent +2 removed, and now it's only a a single turn, but I still think it definitely has its uses. Next card up absolutely has its uses despite a nerf, Defender of Argus. It had its damage reduced by 1 recently, but that's really not the reason you put this in your deck. You put it in there for that awesome, awesome battle cry. It really, really does a job, you know, changing up the math, putting a couple taunts up on the board for your opponent to have to deal with before they can punch through. Really excellent card, and honestly, I have a problem not putting this in, you know, pretty much every deck that I have.
Yeah, I agree. I love that card. And moving on, we have the Dragonling mechanic. It's a 2/4, summons a 2/1. I love those cards that summon, you know, more than one minion.
Yeah, it's nice, and the reason it's in this deck explicitly is because I kind of built this from the beginning as a Bloodlust deck, you know, which is coming up next here or in just a little bit. And you love cards that put more minions on the board, because the more minions that are on the board, the better Bloodlust is. So that's pretty much the only reason this is here, is because it synergizes well with Shaman. So speaking of great Shaman cards, though, is one that's specific to them, is the Wind Speaker. This guy is excellent just because he pops Wind Fury on something. And Wind Fury, I think, is kind of underrated, you know?
Yeah, I agree. This is a really powerful card. You know, you pair this with a Fire Elemental or even early game to, you know, get some solid removal. It's I think it's an underrated card, but it's really good. It's a 3/3 minion anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's not quite awesome as far as stats, you know, being that it's 4 money, but 3/3 is no slouch, and that Wind Fury is excellent. It can really, really change the game. And, of course, when you really want to change the game as far as ending it, though, the next card does the job, pretty much.
Yeah,
Bloodlust.
Bloodlust. It gives 3 attack to every minion on your side. It's really fantastic. It can end games very early. Or you can come back, you know, if you're down.
Yeah. I mean, what's great about this is, you know, with the Shaman's hero ability, when you're popping out totems, you know, that's excellent, because normally they just sit there and they don't do very much besides, you know, as far as attack power, besides that searing one, which comes with a measly 1 attack. All of a sudden you throw Bloodlust down, and if you got a board full of totems and a couple of minions, bang, you just picked up 18 damage or so, you know, from all those totems and a couple minions. And that's tough to contend with if you're an opponent. So Bloodlust changes games. I love the card, and it works well in the Shaman again.
Yeah, going back to our standard cards here, we have No Mission Ventor. We kind of skipped him. He's
oh, we did, yeah.
He's a 2/4 with some card draw. It's just more card draw for the deck, kind of hoping to draw those Bloodlust, those multi-minion creatures, you know, again, so you can flood the board, get those Bloodlust activated.
Yeah, he was basically included solely for card draw just because we didn't have a whole lot in this deck. So I wanted to throw him in and get a little something else in there. And he's a reasonable little minion, and I certainly like him a lot better than the newly nerfed Novice Engineer. So he's really nice for that, and I appreciate him.
Yeah,
I love him. He's
and
great.
more synergy with this deck, we have a Frostwolf Warlord. It gains 1/1 for every minion you have on the board. It's super strong in this deck because, again, you know, we're playing Rush, aggro deck.
Yeah, summon lots of creatures, use creatures that summon more creatures. You know, the totem ability, you know, even if you have nothing on the board, and if you're a little bit later game, you can still summon a totem and then this guy, you know, and he still ends up being a decent creature. And if you have 2 creatures on the board, this guy's a value, and it just gets better and better and better from there. So really, really strong, especially since Silence isn't nearly as popular as it used to be, we'll say. And he tends to keep the stats that he gets unless he gets direct removed. So love that. And, you know, also kind of in line with that, along with the Bloodlust and the Frostwolf, is the next card, Silverhand Knight. One of our staples for sure, but still worth mentioning,
Yeah,
I think.
I love this card. I have this card in almost every one of my decks. I just think it's extreme value for 5 mana. I like the 4 damage and a 2/2. It's good.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even though it splits it up a little bit for the purposes of this deck, having that split minion is actually good, you know?
Yeah.
Having multiple targets is good. So being able to pop this guy out is great, and I love him, and he works well for the same reasons that some of the other ones in here do. And rounding out this deck is probably the powerhouse card, you know, as far as the basic cards go for the Shaman, which is a Fire Elemental. There's really no reason not to carry 2 of these guys, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's a 6/5, and you get a 3 damage as a battle cry on anything on the board or the hero itself. Fantastic card.
Yeah, this thing absolutely does all the work in the world. You know, if you see these cards in Arena, you know, some of the most successful Arena decks I've seen are when people pick up 4 or 5 of these things. You know,
Absolutely.
it's just because if someone has a ton of these in their hand, it's really, really hard to take them down. So excellent, excellent card. And I really can't think of a great Shaman deck that I've seen that didn't include 2 fire elementals. And you get them for free because they come with the basic deck. So anyway, so that's the low sort of mid-budget version of the deck. Again, this is built around Bloodlust, you know, and around just even that just one Frostwolf Warlord helps out a lot too. But something to play around with, give it a shot. And but with that, I think we can flip over and take a look at a little bit higher budget version. So we'll head into that. All right, so on the high budget side here, then we're going to start things off with Lightning Bolt. Excellent card.
Yeah, great card. It costs you an overload, but it's really good early game removal. It's direct removal. I love this card. That's why I have 2.
Yeah, I'd love to have 2 of these, but I literally haven't opened them yet. Otherwise, they would be in my deck too. So that's the only reason they're not there. But they're fantastic cards, and you can also blast the hero, you know, for that final bit of damage. Just, you know, don't do it early because that's bad. Otherwise, up next here, as one I obviously had in my deck too, the Rockbiter weapon. Just carrying 2 of these is just good business, you know?
Yeah, for 1 mana cost, this is a fantastic +3 damage. It's a great buff card. It just works well.
Yeah, and you know, in case you haven't managed to draw your weapons yet, you know, which is actually coming up here on the next card, it serves as great removal for your hero to be able to take something out. Or if you have drawn your weapon, you know, you bump up your damage ability to 5 all of a sudden, which works quite nicely, you know.
Yeah, it's great.
For at least this next weapon, and then we have a better one later. But of course, we're talking about the Stormforged axe here, which is the same one that I had in my deck. Again, I only had 1. You got 2 in this one. I think it's perfectly fine to do that.
Yeah, I like it. It's for early game. It's good to play it, you know, on turn 2 if you can. If not, it still works late game, although it's not quite as useful just because in the beginning you're really only going to see minions with 2 health or maybe 3, but...
Right. And later on, though, it's going to be a lot harder to get rid of stuff, you know, with just this weapon. But still, it's great. Take them. They're excellent. And in case you get one blown up, then you have a spare. And what blows up weapons, of course? Then our favorite little buddy,
Acidic Swamp Ooze.
Love him. He's great. You got 1 in this deck, and most of the time that's sufficient. You know, the only reason I'm carrying a second one is because I didn't carry a second Stormforged axe. You know, so.
Fair enough.
But very, very good card. You know, for reasons we've mentioned many times. As is this next card. You know, Fairy Dragon, our personal favorite as far as neutral minions go for low cost. These guys are fantastic, and you should carry them, I think.
Yeah, they're really, really good. And moving on again to a second staple in both of these decks, Flame Tongue Totems. Carry 2 of these in my deck just because of all the small little weenie minions. They're great to buff that.
Yeah, turn them into powerhouses all of a sudden. You know, turn them into real problems that, you know, the enemy has to deal with. And what's great about these is they pretty much should just have the word taunt on them, because they do.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they really are taunts, you know, because your enemy wants to get rid of these fast. But by getting rid of these, they're not targeting your actual minions, too. You know, which is kind of cool. So, you know, so, I mean, you don't want to lose this thing, but, you know, still, you know, you put this sucker out there, it's almost a guarantee that someone's going to go for it instead of your actual minions first. So, pretty cool. Next up, another one I carried real quick is just the Knife Juggler. You know, for reasons we mentioned before, you know, you're playing some low-cost minions here, and of course you always have your totems. And when you pop those things out, this guy fires. You gotta love that.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it works. That's why we have 2 of these in this deck. And moving on, this is another Shaman-specific card, Feral Spirits. It's a 3 cost with 2 overload, but it summons 2 2/3 taunt minions. This is a really, really good early game and even late game Shaman card.
Yeah, it's excellent. As puts a stall tactic up on the board, gets a couple of guys that can, you know, do some damage. If you can get them buffed even, they become really strong, you know, and it's an actual spell, you know, too. So some of the like secrets and stuff that proc on creature summon and things like that don't affect these because it's a spell, you know, so that's kind of cool that way too. But it's got a pretty hefty overload on it if you end up using it early game, but still, I think it's well worth it, and it can really shift that balance of the game in your favor. After that, we just have a Hex. Again, just love to carry this card because reasons. Direct removal is nice. I still like it. Don't take them completely out of your decks, in my opinion. I think they're useful for sure.
Yeah, I still think they're useful. It's a good card. Moving on, we have, again, we talked about that Shaman AoE. We have a Lightning Storm here. I run 2 of these in this deck because AoE removal is really vital, I think, in any class. And
Yeah, pretty much anything.
Yeah, and some classes have better than others. And but this is your Shaman AoE, so yeah, we carry 2 of these.
Yeah. This isn't something you just get for free. You got to find these in packs or craft them. But once you do, you're pretty much going to include them every time. They're fantastic cards. Another one of our neutral favorites, again, Harvest Golem. This is in almost all of our decks, if not all of our decks, just because it's such a strong card. Its Death Rattle is excellent. You know, even if you get board wiped or something, this guy's going to come back, you know, which is fantabulous. We love him. So after him as another Shaman-specific card, this is the draw engine, right?
Yeah, this is the little engine that can. It's the Mana Tide Totem.
Yeah, this guy, again, this is another one of those cards that doesn't say taunt, but it basically is.
Yeah, yeah. It draws you card at the end of every turn, and yeah, it doesn't say taunt, but it really should, because if you let somebody sit there and draw cards all day, you're gonna lose. So people will remove this card or make very concerted efforts to do so.
Yeah, which is why you don't really want to play it naked. It's going to get killed. But if you can manage to stick it out there with a couple of taunts, say from Feral Spirits or something like that, you know, or with one of our other buddies coming up here, Defender of Argus, when that shows up, to give something else some taunt and keep the focus away from this card. If it ends up drawing you 3 or 4 cards before it dies, you have a massive advantage, and it's going to work out great. So
yeah, if you get 2 cards out of it, I think it's good. Any less than that, it's kind of a bummer. But yeah, more than 2, you're on Value Town.
Yeah, it's going to be hard you're going to be hard to beat at that point for sure. So moving past that is the Unbound Elemental. This is one I kind of had to turn you around a little bit on, as I recall.
Yeah, I don't really like this card, but we do have a pretty good amount of overload in this deck. And so how this card works is it gets buffed every time you play an overload card, you know, Lightning Bolt, Lightning Storm, and what have you. And
sure, Feral Spirit.
Yeah, Feral Spirit.
Axe.
It can become a beast.
Yeah, if you let this thing get out of control, and again, it's something you might want to protect a little bit in its early stages, but it can get absolutely crazy. And the idea, of course, is if you can, to wait to drop this card until you're about to play 1 or 2 more overload cards immediately afterwards, so you can buff it up very quickly and then make it a bit more of a problem for your opponent to deal with right from the get-go. These can be great. We've only got 1 in this deck just because we wanted to fit a couple of other things in. But there's no reason why you can't have 2 of these if you don't have something else to fill the spot. So really, really nice card. After him, we have an old favorite that I think is going to be coming back a lot, especially since the Dark Iron Dwarf got nerfed. You know, and that's our good friend Chillwen Yeti.
Yay, Mr. Yeti.
Yeah. As we've said, Yetis win games.
Yep, he's a 4/5, no text. That's it. He's boring.
He's boring, but man, is he sexy.
That's right.
He does a lot of work. That 5 health is a problem to get rid of, you know, in the early stages in the game. And if you can get this guy buffed, he's just a beast. I mean, he's awesome. I love Yeti, and everybody gets him, so make use of him. After that, a card not everybody has, but you should work to acquire as quickly as possible, I think. Defender of Argus, we mentioned him before, you know, and even in the low-budget commentary there. This guy's fantastic. His battle cry is sick. And if he can protect some of the other cards here in this high-budget deck, it's really, really worth having him around to keep the enemy from taking down some of the stuff he'd rather him not.
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic card.
And moving on to some more combo, we have the Wind Speaker. It's that Wind Fury minion, you know, gives any minion on your side, well, I guess the enemy too, Wind Fury. But,
yeah.
It's a 3/3 creature as well. With this deck, as you'll see a little later, we have some pretty strong minions, and if you can give these guys Wind Fury, it gets crazy.
Yeah, it definitely gets out of control, you know, and something that isn't expected. It's that burst damage that people don't expect you to have. And if you manage to get something out there that's really strong and you pop Wind Fury on it, all of a sudden it becomes an extremely large problem. Something else, though, that you can do with this card, which not as many people know of as far as Wind Fury is concerned, is buff yourself when you have ye olde Doomhammer. We love Doomhammer.
So would that give you double Wind Fury?
What's that? Oh, yeah, that's right. I guess you don't really need it on that.
But would that work on Stormforge Axe, maybe?
It would work on the Stormforge Axe. That's right. It wouldn't work on the Doomhammer because you already have Wind Fury on the Doomhammer. I knew there was something cool about the Doomhammer, and it's because it already has Wind Fury. That's right.
Yeah, it's 2 damage. It gives you 8 swings, but obviously because you have Wind Fury, You can attack for 4 per turn. What I like about Doomhammer in this deck is you tack on some Rockbiter weapons. Your
Yeah, then all of a
Doomhammer
sudden you're doing 10. Yeah.
or higher,
Yeah,
potentially.
yeah, if you put 2 of them on there, if you tack them both on, it could be really sick. So, yeah, sorry about that. See, this is what happens when I don't have all the cards.
It's all right.
Yeah, that's why we have you. That's okay. No, I want one of these really, really bad. But so right now, though, I just have to use my wind speakers on my lowly Stormforged axe.
Yeah, you don't see a lot of Doomhammers, honestly, but I think it's still a good card and worth putting in your deck.
Yeah. So next up is Bloodlust, the card that I built my low budget deck basically around. Only one in this deck, but still very, very strong. And even if you don't have tons of minions on the board, it can give that extra burst to take down a couple of problem minions that you need, or of course to just burst down the enemy hero and end the game. So really, really nice card there still, and in every shaman's arsenal because you get it by default. So pretty great.
Here, in upcoming next, we have a card that I was not sold on initially, but it is like stupid strong. The Earth Elemental. This thing is a tank and a half.
Yeah, beast card. Hefty overload.
Yeah, 3.
So worth. This thing is absolutely a truck. And unless your opponent has something that can instantly get rid of this card or neutralize it in some manner, like an Elder Peacekeeper or something, it can be a really, really, really big problem. So I think it's excellent. This is a great target for Windspeaker. This is a great target for a Rockbiter weapon. It's got a lot of potential to just really ruin someone's day. Or even if you don't buff it at all, it's still a beast.
Yeah, it's still 7/8 with taunt. I mean, that's going to be hard to deal with.
Yeah, fantastic card. We only got one of them here, just again because we wanted to put a couple of other ones, the creatures in the deck here and stuff. But I see a lot of decks that run 2 of these, and they can be quite successful. So definitely look at the card. It's a monster.
And on the elemental theme here, we have Fire Elemental. Again, this is featured in our low budget version as well, but that's because this card is amazing. If there are any cards that are known for the Shaman deck, it's probably this one.
Yeah, absolutely. This guy does work. That battle cry is just obscene, and you should almost always have 2 of these in your deck, as we said before. After that, a couple of cards that aren't possibly in everyone's deck because they don't have them yet, but if you get them, they do end up being there. First up is Sylvanas. This card recently got a big nerf. Big nerf in the way that I say is 1 extra mana. Big whoop. Who cares?
Still awesome.
Yeah, this card is still a beast. It's 5/5, and its Death Rattle is one of the most annoying things to have to deal with in Hearthstone if you're the opponent. So make them pay, stick it in there, and as you climb the ranks in the ladder, you're going to see this card over and over and over again because everyone plays it, but there's a reason.
It makes people freak out, honestly. Like, they just panic when they see this card because they're like, oh, it takes control of one of my minions. What am I going to do?
Exactly. Like, how do I deal with this? So it's kind of fun. It makes people play in ways that they normally don't want to play in, because they just don't want to leave you with the possibility of getting a strong minion when it dies. So pretty cool card and definitely worth picking up. And then lastly, I think your personal favorite.
I have a golden Ragnaros. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Yeah. It's fantastic.
I spend monies, yo.
Yeah. But you know what? You like it. It's worth it. Done. It's fun. This card is crazy. And again, its really only weakness is if it manages to get direct removal. If someone even silences it, it's still an 8/8 creature. So
yeah,
what are you really doing?
Fantastic. I would have to say this is probably the #1 legendary in the game, in my opinion.
In your opinion, yes. So, but anyway, though, that's the high budget version of the deck, guys. Hopefully, you found some insight into that, and be on the lookout for more of these. We're going to do one for every class. So stay tuned, and we'll see you soon.